Hello, Alessandra.
Hi, hello.
Okay, how are you?
Um, Here I am. Very good, thank
Good.
you. And you, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, are you in Hanover?
Yes, at the moment I'm in Hanover. We had few days for Easter,
Yeah.
free. Obviously not possible to go anywhere or travel, but
Yeah.
also nowadays everything is very spontaneous. So when something new
Exactly.
comes, you have to be able to adapt and yeah, react
Yeah.
to it because yeah, it's difficult to make plans.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also with probably with your performances as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yes.
is it also now you think you're doing something and then in a few weeks' time it's cancelled?
Yeah, exactly. For example, we were hoping that on April 16th and 18th, the government of the region would allow us to do like a test performance with
Mm.
some audience or not, or testing. And we were waiting for the answer, and unfortunately, we won't be able to do it. They didn't approve it. So yeah, maybe in April we'll try again. So we have to be yeah, ready with the piece. And in case we get the opportunity, then we go on stage. And in case we don't get the opportunity, then we wait for the next
Yeah.
try.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's like this.
That's the hard part. I think this up and down, this one moment you think because uh, artists are really driven by this um, working for something and knowing that you're going to present something and when that comes and goes like that, I think it's probably very hard for you. How do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me at least, what I find difficult is maybe, for example, we had a premiere at the end of February with live streaming, of course, and it was on the website of the theater for 30 days. And so, of course, the months before premiere, they were very intense. It almost felt like a normal situation, and that because we don't get performances, because we don't really have that kind of routine. Then after premiere, we had this month of March that was really quiet. So
Mm.
we went from a very intense moment of working on a premiere and everything that comes with it. So run throughs and costumes and rehearsals and creation, and then a month of it being very quiet. So you go from
Yeah.
also physically being really involved and very physical and very much in shape to be not so in shape because maybe you
Yeah.
just do class or very few rehearsals. So for me the challenge is to maintain a stability when it
Mm.
comes to the motivation like you mentioned, but also the physical aspect of trying to not go through so many waves. I think that's also can be stressful for the body, for example, too. Because I think throughout the season, normally you have times where you're working more than others, also depending on the production, what you're doing, and so on. But I think right now it's very extreme
Mm.
because of the COVID. There's
Yeah.
very little. Yeah, it goes from doing a lot to doing not so much, but it
Mm.
was still great to work on something and put it on live stream, and that was still something psychologically, something very positive, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
something to work for.
But initially in the March lockdown, the first lockdown, this is very interesting for me, and I think I speak to ballet dancers a lot about this because I think we have to also understand that your instruments are your bodies and that it's not something outside of you. So of course, when you're not actively doing ballet or training or using the muscles, then of course the body changes completely. And and I was thinking a lot about this fact that you're not in the studio, you're not amongst your colleagues, and ballet is very much in that sense. You are, also get your energy from other dancers that you're dancing with and that you're with all the time. And I think you as dancers are very much connected in this way. I mean, even if it's not your friends, I think there is this connection in ballet that's between you. And how did you find that first lockdown when everything just completely came to a standstill?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially for our case, so here in Hanover, the directorship of Marco Göke began last season. So we
Yeah.
had just started with him, and so the company was brand new in a lot of ways, sort of new dancers, new group, new team. So, and we worked for 6 months together. So you just start to create, your home somehow. You just start to create your connections, and you start to really, blend in. And then in the middle of that, we were locked at home. So I think for us, it really affected the group, the possibility to really create a unit. And like you mentioned, I think it's not, necessarily about being friends or not, but I think dance is about the collective, and
Exactly.
it's about also touch and, working in a group. So that is very important, I find, in a company. And I think for us, that has been difficult because we were in lockdown from the 13th of March until sometime in the beginning of May. And then we started working in groups. So first we were 3 groups of, I don't know, about 10 people. And so your company, my company, were the people I was training with. It was not anymore this group of almost 30
Yeah,
people. It became
yeah.
a very small version of it. And that, of course, limits your capacity to connect to the others and to really create that sense of company. So I think especially in our case, because we were just starting, it really affected that. But I think, for example, recently with the Lover, Der Liebhaber, which is the piece that Marco Göke created for us from live stream at the end of February, that was a great chance to finally work together. We had a health plan, then we were getting a PCR test 3 times a week, the team and the dancers and all in the costume department. So half of the theater was getting tested for us to be able to perform and have touch. So we almost were living in a normal scenario, except for the 3 times a week test. And I think that was a great opportunity for us to, coming together and to work together again. It was a year that we didn't spend time together, all of us. So I think that just simply affected the way that the company started working. It was just 3 separate groups, and that was a shame because we had just started. It was 6
Yeah,
months in,
yeah.
and that really hit in the middle of our first season. Yeah, so I think that I think even for companies and dancers that have been colleagues for years, I think it also, I think dancers are routine creatures also.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because we have such a strong routine since we start dancing, that might be for some of us since we're kids, some of us teenagers,
yeah.
doesn't matter, but there's a strong attachment to routine. So also that being changed, also I don't know, like there are 3 groups, now we're 2 groups of class. So we always swap with the time. One class is at 10:30, one class is at 12. So also, this change and different hours, I think also that takes some time to adapt to it.
Yeah, because
So
I think if you have a, a routine, well, this is just how I think about it. If I think you have a routine for, say, you've been a dancer, or what would I say? Like you said, the routine would be first it's class and then it's rehearsal. So now suddenly, so you are almost psychologically and your body is prepared for this class in the morning. Now suddenly somebody says to you, well, the class will be 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and you're mentally you have to now
yeah,
adjust to that as well. Yeah. And although we all, the end of the day, we all say, well, we're glad we're healthy, we're glad, we're happy to, and we appreciate everything. But these are just things that I think we should just think about or acknowledge, that artists, it's not this simple. It's not just about seeing this performance. It's about all these little things behind the scenes that that can affect a dancer, or that can affect the psyche of a dancer, and or a musician. So this is why it's interesting for me to talk about these things. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think this not just the lockdown, but the absence of performances has been really revealing to me, at least, because I think all dancers, when they're kids again or teenagers, depending on when they started it, they start because they like to dance, so they like to perform,
Yeah.
they like to be on stage. But I think there's a big misconception about that. I believe that 80, if not more, percent of a dancer's career happens in the studio.
Yeah.
If you're only interested in the um, performing aspect, then you'll get very little satisfaction, because it's 2 hours, 1 hour, depending on how long you're on stage, and then it's gone. So you really need to love the studio time. You really need to love, like you said, all that happens before or during, or in the back. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, what has this moment has been very important to remember, that it's great that we have the performance, it's great that we get the opportunity to go on stage, but the life of the dancer, and I think in some ways it's the same for actors, for opera singers, for musicians, that the preparation for the performance represents the biggest part of their career. When it comes to time, just you dedicate so much time to it that if you're hungry for stage constantly, you'll never really get satisfied. It's like you only like dessert. There is a whole meal you have before the
Oh,
dessert.
this
And
is so wonderful how you describe it. But yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can make space and you get your dessert, but usually you have to eat all the other, and you have to like that too, because if you don't like it, after a while that won't work for you. So I think that has also reminded me, at least, how important it is to really stay in that studio and approach to that as your career. The moment you go on stage, that's the cherry on top, that's the gift. But I think the real dedication and work and passion happens in the studio, with your colleagues and with the team. I think that also creates the group then when you share that together. On stage, I think it's normal that artists become you have to be concentrated, so there is a sense of self-centered at some point. But the studio, that's the time to connect and to be playful and to reach out to the others in a way that then it might happen on stage.
Yeah. Sorry, this is just my Lily.
No worries, I have two
Waking
cats.
up.
There might be some meows at some point.
But yeah, this is now very interesting, because I also think that it's very important that we think about also this part that you say, that's the training part, and that's also a big part of the artist's life and of who the artist is. But that's the part that the public never have any insight in. And I think specifically ballet, and this is why I specifically talk to many ballet dancers with these conversations, because I think there's a huge misconception also about the ballet world. And we see now and then there is a film about some dancer or so, but it's so well, it's what do you say, it's not realistic. And it would be, and also people always have this idea that it's this very terrible life, and you damaging your body, and it's just terrible, and it's actually not. And it would be very interesting to have dancers talk about reality of it, the reality of being a dancer, and not just these either the two sides, either this glamorous side of it or this very
miserable side of it,
dire part.
I mean, I think they both exist. There is the glamorous and very
difficult,
castle-like, or almost fairy tale aspect to it. And I think that's why children are attracted by it. And there is a difficult, to some miserable aspect to it, but I think what's always so important is that if we have to then look at it from the athletic, think of dancers as athlete, and the way our athletes are portrayed, then that, yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice, there's many hours of training, many of them had to move from their maybe small town or country and go to leave their families behind. That happens to many athletes, but they're heroes. No, I think they're portrayed in a different ways, and I think dancers
Exactly.
have more this a melancholia around them. But I think the same way dancers and athletes, the same way dancers to athletes, it's a choice.
Mm.
And when it's a choice, then I think all of those walls fall down, because nobody forces any of us to train 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's our choice to do so. So I think as soon as you realize that it's people's decision, then all the misconception just should fall on itself. Because I think if you ask dancers why they dance, why they started, I think most of them will just tell you, oh, because I liked it, or it happened for me, maybe through a friend or something. But it's difficult,
Yeah.
I find, for dancers to remember the moment that they consciously
Mm.
decided what I want to do. It just kind of happened to them,
Yeah.
because most of us, we started so young that you don't have that capacity to make decisions on that level. It just kind of happens to you, and then you find yourself already doing it, and you're like, how did I get
Yeah.
here? But
Yeah.
it's still a
But
choice you make every day.
I think it's also this perception, then immediately when you think of a ballet dancer, you think of a girl in a tutu, that idea. And then for boys, it's difficult sometimes when people are not informed. Then they also have a stereotypical idea of a boy who does ballet.
Sure.
And yeah, this is almost as if I think, uh, if there could be in a way more information from the dancers, to talk about these things, that's how they see it. And like you say, just the way you expressed it, to say that it's not just about the performance, but it's about the work that you do in the studio. That's part of it. And that people also understand that part, because I don't know if you also get this, where people ask you, what job do you do? And you say, well, I'm a ballet dancer. And they say, no, but what's your real job?
I mean, yes, of course, of course. Luckily, though, I've been living in Germany for over 10 years, and I have to say I get that a lot less here compared to my home country, that's Italy. So I get that answer.
Okay.
I get that question a lot more in my home country, a little bit less here in Germany. I think the theater culture here is much
Yeah.
more spread between the people. I think not more common, because Italy has some of the most gorgeous, beautiful, it's old is establishment when it comes to theaters, but I think it's more elitarian, it's more for elite, and I think in Germany
Yeah.
it's more spread through the population. I mean, I think for me at least, I think about dance as my vehicle that I use to move through life. Dance it's the way I use for me to make life experiences, because I think it's not always about dance, it's about also life and the individual, and I think about the people that I've met, that have made a tremendous impact in my life. They were maybe artists, maybe not, and I've met them, most of them through my profession, maybe because I moved to a city, or because who was working in the theater, or who was in the company, but they affected me, and me as individual, as a person, as a human. And I think that is so powerful, and I have to always be so thankful to dance that has allowed me to make those incredible life experiences. And also in today's world, I think I look also at ballet schools and how lucky I was, and how lucky are those kids to be in a room with people from all over the world. What a fantastic gift that is, to be in a room where there is somebody from the other side of the world, and be able to see that, or
Yeah.
different sexual orientations, or to this misconception about fragile, um beautiful, soft women and, very manly men, and how that in dance can be all, thrown around and turned around. So I think of dance as a vehicle again, which I use to move in my life, until that will work for me, so to say. And I'm just so, when I think of that, I'm just so grateful, because I've made those incredible life experiences and been able to meet people and see the world because of that. And I think
Mm.
that's such a privilege. I
Yeah,
feel so privileged for
amazing. Yeah,
this.
amazing that you see it that way.
I mean, I
And
choose to
that's
see it like this. I choose to see it like this. I could also choose to see the times that, to focus on the sacrifice. I also moved out of Italy when I was 15, and I was a year in Copenhagen, and I think, it was the hardest year of my life, and I know that, I think of that, but I also, I think it was just part of that journey, that vehicle, was part of my, yeah, my way
yeah.
to get things.
So you mentioned before that about the age that people start ballet or dancers start ballet. Did you also start at the age of 4?
No, I don't think so young, but my mom, she was a ballet dancer.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have Bulgarian, half Italian. So my mom is Bulgarian, and
Mm.
she danced she did her ballet school in Bulgaria, and she danced in Bulgaria, and she came on tour to Italy, and that's when she met my dad. So
Mm.
but when I was born, my mom, she was a trainer for the gymnasts in Italy. And so actually I grew up more in the gym than in a ballet,
Oh, I
in a ballet
see.
room. I grew up around the rhythmic gymnasts, so not the ones with they almost look like they're doing dance.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
I grew up
Yeah.
more around them than actual dancers. So and then later on, I think she brought me to a ballet school, because I think she was teaching there and I really didn't like it. And then I think she convinced me the year after, and so yeah, then it started. But again, like, it just happened so fast somehow, and I was doing hip hop at the same time that I loved doing. I was so
Oh,
passionate.
really?
I was much more passionate about hip hop than classical ballet.
Oh, okay.
I just a lot more
Yeah.
fun. It was a lot more
Yeah.
fun. And I actually am originally from a small town in the center of Italy. And I think in my first, no, yes, when I was in middle school, I started taking the train to go to train in Rome, because it's quite close, it's an hour by train, in a more professional school. So yeah, by the age of 11 or 12, 13, I was taking the train for an hour to go to Rome. And then with 14, then I moved to Rome with my mom. And I was there for a few years, 2 years. And then I moved to Copenhagen. I think, having a parent that is in the field is a curse and the,
And a
and the most
blessing.
beautiful thing at the same time. It's all those things together.
Yeah.
It can be the best thing, it can be the most difficult thing, but she is somebody that really, really pushed me to make the step to go abroad. I don't know if I would have done it without her. I mean, she just simply told me, if this is what you want to do in your life, then there is very little possibility to do it here in Italy. You can finish your high school and finish your studies here in Rome. That would be great, but that's going to be afterwards difficult to start your professional career. So she said, if you want to do this and you really want it, then going abroad now, it's probably the best way to invest in your future. And so we did it. But again, I just don't remember sitting in my bed in my room thinking, am I really going to do this or not? It just sort of
Mhm.
happened. I was in Rome, and
Oh,
then I
yeah.
was on a plane, and then I was in Copenhagen, and then I was
Oh,
sitting there,
okay.
I was like, how did I get here? What happened? So it just, it was so fast. But I think I started maybe with 6 or 7, something like this.
Okay. And then in Copenhagen, were you there at the ballet school?
Yes, I was for a year at the Royal Danish Ballet School. So there was the Bournonville School, and I was there
Mm.
for a year, and it was really rough for me. It was.
Really?
I
Mm.
think about it as, I have some friends that have had kid, and I asked them, so how was the experience of giving birth? And
Mm.
all of them, they're saying something about nature, like you just sort of
Yeah.
don't quite remember it. Oh, you remember
Mm.
it, but something about sense of survival, maybe, you know, allowing you to make that experience again, they kind of make it becomes foggy. It's not so
Yeah.
clear. I think it has to do with trauma on some level, you know, and
Mm.
this is exactly how I feel about that year. It's all very
Really?
foggy to me.
Yeah.
It's all very vague. I have very unclear memories. I mean, it's not that many. I mean, it's yeah, more than 50, around yeah, almost 15 years ago, but it's, you know, it's still very
Mm.
unclear for me.
Yeah. Oh, I
Um,
see.
yeah, I think it was just very hard. You know, I was much more, I was quite extroverted, and I was living in Rome, and I was in a very different environment. And then I went to a Scandinavian country where I was also so shocked about the daylight and how little light was there. I don't know, all those little things. It just was very difficult for me. I think it
Mm.
also just really shaped my personality later on. Like it shaped the adult that I became later. And after that, with my parents, we realized it just was not a healthy place for me on some levels. So I moved to Hamburg. I went to the Hamburg Ballet School, and that's where I did my Ausbildung. I did my diploma there, and I was there for 2 years. And it was just a much better environment. In Copenhagen, I was the only foreigner in the whole school, so it was
Oh, I
me
see.
and only
Yeah.
Danish people. So also on a communication level, it was very difficult to connect to the others. It kind of relates to what we were mentioning also before, the
Yeah.
connecting aspect. And then in Hamburg, it was a very international class, and we were from all over the world, and I had my own flat. I don't know, it was a very different experience on a much healthier level. So
Mm.
so yeah, that was my education. And since then, so since Hamburg, which I moved here, I was almost, yeah, I was 16. I have been living in Germany since then. So I'm turning 29 this year, and yeah,
All the time in Germany.
I'm just
Wonderful. Yeah.
I'm stick to Germany. Yes, it has become
Yeah.
my home.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Mhm.
But uh, how did you deal with the lockdown situation, the isolation part?
I mean, thankfully, my boyfriend was living at the time in Schwerin, which is a town in the north of Germany. And as soon as the lockdown happened, he just like took the cats one on one side, one on the other, and the
Yeah.
backpack and came to Hanover. So I
Yeah.
was so thankful that I wasn't on my
Oh,
own, because
wow. Okay.
I
Yeah.
think that would
Yeah.
have been, I felt a lot of empathy
Mm.
for the colleagues that, you know, maybe did not don't have a partner, and so or were living on their own, didn't have any flatmates, and that spent all that time alone. I really have a lot of empathy, because I think that psychological impact, it's something that maybe has not been talked about enough. You know, also dancers are very young, and
Mm.
you know, maybe being in their early 20s for, you know, almost 2 months on almost completely alone, you know, and also worrying, I think, about, you know, maybe families that are far. You know, I'm Italian. At that time in March, the situation in Italy was very dramatic, and so also
Yeah.
worrying about you know, family members and loved ones far away. And so really I have a lot of I have a lot of empathy for my colleagues all over the world that were going through this time alone, because I was lucky, I was not alone, and that I'm really aware of how much easier it made the
Mm.
experience.
Yeah, I know. I think you're absolutely right. That and it's difficult to admit. I think for people to say, "Listen, I'm really struggling," you know, because we think that you know, or the idea is that why should you be struggling? You're at home, or you know, at least you have a roof over your head, or things like that. But it's this isolation, you know, and this unsure time and not contact with people. I think, you know, more people should admit that we understand that it was a difficult time, or still for some artists it is still a difficult time, because as you say, some of them are just, you know, so far away from their families, they haven't seen their families, and it's that feeling of not being able to go, not being able to have that freedom to decide if you want to go and see your family or not. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, I mean,
very important. Yeah.
I think it's true. It needs to. it needs to be more of an open conversation. Also,
Mm.
again, with dancers, it's also a thing of age, and also of personality. I'm not everybody is comfortable with spending so much time alone. I think
Yeah.
that's when it's difficult on a mental health aspect to accept it, to you're on your own. And again, creatures of habit, we're used to spend time every day together in a room, and even if you don't have to talk to everybody, you're in a room with other people.
Mm.
And I think that also now our COVID situation has become our normality. So we almost don't remember how it used to be before. But I think a year
Yeah.
ago, this was very unnormal. It was very new. So, I still remember the first time that I went to do food shopping, and there was a line to enter, and how shocking that was, and now
Mm.
we're used to it. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, it's, I think, yeah, it's a matter of age, of personality, of also, having the families really, really far away. No, for example, again, last summer I was able to go to Italy, but I have colleagues from, I don't know, the States or South America that have not been able, and they don't know if they will be able to go this summer. So that would mark 2 years, and that is a very long time
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
some of us not to see their family. And I think it's again, it's very individual how people deal with different things. But
Mm.
um, yeah, I think again, for me, my experience, I know how lucky I was because I was not on my own.
Mm.
um, and I'm a home bear. I don't mind being
Oh,
at
okay.
home.
Okay.
So for me, it's not. But I have friends that are extremely extroverted.
Yeah.
They love being around people. They love going outside, and
Going
for them,
out.
it was
Yeah.
like jail.
But what do you do as a little home bear at home when you're not dancing? Did you have
Um,
a hobby or something?
I'm very passionate about choreography, so this is at the moment
Oh,
something that
okay. Yeah. Mm.
I'm starting to invest on. So I am, but that doesn't really happen in my sofa. So, but still, a lot of thinking happens in the
Yeah.
sofa
Okay.
back here.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
but no, I mean, I love reading. I have a passion for movies. And I,
Mm.
again, the people I'm around, they know that we could be at home together, and you could tell me, okay, I'll go out and I'll see you in a while. You might come back and you might find me in the same exact positions where you left me.
Oh, okay.
That's classic me. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
very comfortable with
Yeah.
I have a very active inner world, so to say.
Oh, I
So
see. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
a very
Oh.
entertaining. I self-entertain myself a lot.
Oh, okay. I'm the same. I live on cloud nine, so I do the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. But no, but what I ask artists also is I think this is a time that we really should reflect and think about. Very many things are highlighted at the moment with this lockdown situation. Uh, and one of the things are specifically the arts and how the arts are valued. And do you have this sense that the arts are not valued, or um, that people are not so much um, aware anymore of the importance of the arts?
I mean, I think when you take something for granted, then when you don't have it, then you notice it, or
Mm.
maybe you don't. What I mean with that is, even though I do live in Germany, and I am so always amazed actually how supportive the country is, because I know countries that are in that way. So I feel again part of a group of people that's very lucky. But I do find crazy that you can sit on a plane next to a stranger, but you can't sit in an opera with distance.
Mm.
I find that completely nonsense. And it
And
does
the
make me angry when I think about it.
Yeah, and the fact that you said that the theater tried to do something to make a live performance, but that didn't happen. What was the reason for that?
I mean, at the moment, the reason was that there is an increase of cases in the region, so they
Oh, I
don't feel
see.
comfortable with
Mm.
trying to open theaters and to test possible options.
Mm.
So that's our situation at the moment. And I mean, again, it has to do with this unpredictable
Yeah,
aspect,
yeah.
that
Mm.
tomorrow the numbers might drop tremendously,
Mm.
or they might increase tremendously. So again, it's very difficult to come up with a long-term plan. Sometimes it's difficult to come up with a week plan, from
Mm.
the team or from, your personal life. And I mean, of course, it makes me angry, because I think that it's just a matter of wanting. When you want something, you find ways.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
have to give it, it has to be important to you. You have to see it as a priority, and
Mm.
I do see all these photos of, sitting in a plane. So planes also, they're like so small, and right next to you there is a
Mm.
stranger. And our upper house, I don't know how many seats, I think it's around 1,500. And you could have easily 400 people sitting with distance, and it's a very spacious room compared to an airplane, but it doesn't make the world go around.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's just not a priority for, I guess, a lot of people.
But my thought process around that is that art is seen as entertainment, and it isn't seen as the value that it really has. And I wonder if that has to do with our education system, that the more they reduce time for art in schools, and the more children are exposed to art, and I'm not talking about television and Netflix, I'm talking about really involved in art, so the focus now is so much on the sciences and on maths, for example. And if you think, if children could have an opportunity to do art in school from entry level, all different aspects of art, experience it, learn about it, hear music, have the possibility to try and do movement. You're now saying about choreography. I'm just thinking, if well, I've spoken to other dancers before also. Can you imagine if you could go in a school and take children at a very young age and give them just a few guidelines as to how to to do choreography, or if you do choreography with children on a very basic level, can you just imagine what can come up out of that from children who have no inhibitions, who have these movement abilities that we lose by sitting so much and by moving less and less. And I'm thinking that if the schools could give children the opportunity to express themselves through art, and art is also very much connected to maths and science anyway, that that will change the whole way of how people perceive art in the future.
I mean, I think there are more projects around than we think of, dance companies going to kids. For example, the previous company that I worked was also a mainly private company. So we did a lot of those things to reach out to different public, and it's great, but that's the exception. It's not the
Yeah,
rule. I
yeah,
think it's not
yeah.
about creating the exception or the event. It's about that becoming a rule, because
Mm.
in a situation like that, where let's say you take few dancers from the company and you go to that school and you organize some kind of performance where it's interactive, that's great. The kids are gonna love it. They'll go home and they'll forget. Probably out of
Yeah.
10, maybe one will stick something to one. But I
Mm.
think it's not about creating the event. I think it's about creating a rule, so that they're on a daily level, maybe not daily, but on a more constant level, in touch with something like this, that
Exactly,
it's not about
exactly.
that one day situation. I
Mm.
think that's too little. I think it has to be more, like you mentioned, included in the program, so that they're, I think also what's missing is capacity of having a critical eye when it
Mm.
comes to art. I think
Yes,
also you
yes.
have to be, art expert to have a critical eye. Is also the capacity to analyze and a concept and be
Mm.
critical about it. I think that also is taught in school when you have a text, how you read it and how you analyze it, and then how you're able to answer questions,
Exactly.
right? And that is not different to how you can be critical about a painting or a piece of music or a dance
Mm.
performance. And I think that also is not taught. I think it's taught to look at it, to watch it, and then clap and then walk away.
Exactly.
There is
Yeah.
no, it's always the point of
But
like paying audience. Paying audience pays the ticket, so they'll come, they'll sit down, and they'll clap whatever they see. I think there's also, coming from school, maybe not enough practice into that critical
mm.
point
but
of it.
but you are touching a very important point there, because we also live in a society, unfortunately, where children are fed rubbish, and they are literally mental rubbish that I'm talking about, and they accept it as the norm, and then they have not the capacity and they have not the ability to admire real art and what is really beautiful and that is really significant. And this is exactly that's a very valid point, that this is part of this should be part of the education system, because we're not training, we don't want to have a system where we train everybody to be an artist, but we have to train people to, children to appreciate and also to understand. And the other thing is the brain development when you dance and when you hear music and when you uh, do art or paint or whatever, that's also important. And yeah, this is why I think really there should be talk about this at least, and because I think the more this type of projects, these projects are very valuable. I think they are. I'm not dismissing them. I think even that is as much as possible if it can be done. But this is also it's also like you say, it's just once in a month, once in 6 months, or maybe twice or 3 times a year, and then it's always on the side. So art is always perceived as something on the side. It's not important. It's the afternoon hour, or it's a Friday half an hour session or something like that.
Yes, I mean, um, like you said, I think it's very important that theaters or companies or institution, they take their initiative to be more in touch with the schools.
Mm.
And I think it comes from the families as well.
Yeah.
And I think also, don't get me wrong, ballet dancers can also be the most closed-minded people on earth, the same way as musicians, the same way as
Yeah.
actors. It's not that who is in the art world is 360 degrees. I think also it has to do with what you also mentioned before. When you think of a ballet dancer, then you think about a woman on with point shoes and tutu, and there's still a lot of dancers that think of dance as that. Whatever it's outside of that, it's something else. So it has to do with, I think, opening our minds. But I think people
Yeah.
they have to want to do that. They have to
Yes.
want to step a
Yes.
little bit out of their comfort zone and have that conversation.
Mm.
And I mean, I think I read this post somewhere on social media about how sure, do not, maybe you're not interested in art, but if you look at what you did during quarantine without art, you would have been even
Exactly.
more bored and
Yeah.
isolated. Also, let's look at our homes, the things that we have hanging, and
Exactly.
the things that we want to make our place speak to us.
Mm.
That's also art. But I think it's also, I think how people see artists is they think that it's their passion, end of conversation. No, it's also a
Mm.
job.
Yeah.
It's also my job. It's not just my passion. I just don't do it because it's fun to dance in a room. There is a professional and job aspect to it. And I think people, if you're a dentist, that's your job.
Mm.
If you are a ballet dancer, well, that's your passion, and it's not just about being passionate. It's also, I have working hours, I have to be there on time,
Exactly. Yeah.
I get paid for it, all those different things that I think also are very important to mention that if a child finds out that, you know, he wants to be an opera singer, it's not just his passion. That is going
Mm.
to be his job. It's a real thing. It's
Yeah.
not superficial, you know.
Yeah, and it's the thing where you think if you go to the dentist, you don't mind paying, but if you are, if you see an artist, you think, well, you're loving what you do, so you might as well not be paid or whatever. Like that's that idea that
Mhm.
people have, that
No,
it's
absolutely.
it's just your hobby. Yeah, but
Especially around ballet dancers, I think. Sorry, I think especially around the dance part, because we are the ones probably that have the less education.
mm,
So around that also there is a big misconception, you know, that I think, you know, we're not educated. We're only educated in our field, with maybe
yeah,
less than a musician. You know, musicians, they have many, many years of study. I mean, we have 8, but the thing is that we start so young and our studies, they finish much earlier than, you know, maybe a musician. So there is a misconception about dancers on that level also being not so well educated. And I think
yeah,
that
yeah,
it can be true, but also can be completely false. You know, I think it depends so
mm,
much on the person and the individual journey. And there are many different kinds of intelligence. There are many different kinds of studies. There's many different ways to, you know, to be informed. And I think being informed and uh, expert, or you know, about on some level about art is as valuable as, you know, somebody that has studied to be a dentist. You know.
exactly. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Um, But listen, Alessandra, what is your wish for when this is all over?
Oh, um, I think traveling is a huge part of
Mm,
my struggle at the moment. Again, the company I worked previously to Hanover, we did lots of tours, so I was very used to move, and I think I miss that. And maybe, you know, like I'm working, I don't have time to go anywhere, but the fact that I could really
oh
affects
yeah, yeah.
my
Mm,
health, my mental health at that level. You know, I know that I potentially could. There is the freedom to do it. So I think that I'm really excited about that
oh,
aspect.
okay. Mm,
Um, I'm excited about how we're all going to hopefully remember.
mm,
I don't want us to all throw it away and, you know, start from where we left it before. We can't do that. We have to start
mm.
from where we are at now. So I would love for you know, the arts to and theaters to pick it up from today, you know, and maybe include some things, change things that have been done in certain ways. For example, with the live stream, you know, I think it's not a solution, it's not a substitute for a live performance, and never will be. But I think there are some such great aspects to it. You know, my family has been able to see me on stage
Oh
without
yeah.
traveling. You know, my grandmother, who's 90, she was able to watch
Mm,
me, you know, and you know, maybe the live stream has been able to reach out to people that don't have the possibilities to go to theaters, you know, maybe for where they live or which part of the world. And I think that has such an impact. And you know, maybe out of 12 shows, maybe one could be, you know, recorded live stream and also be put on the
mm,
website. Because I think that people that want to watch live, they will never see the stream as a substitute. Like if I
mm.
can go to the theater and I can do that, I'll never choose the live stream instead, you
Yeah,
know. So I think you won't lose audience, but I think you'll just actually add more audience. You will add more visibility also in relation to what we were talking before, you know, maybe reaching out to families that maybe are not so involved or into the art world. And you know, maybe that it could, I think it's enough to like drop a little curiosity, you know. It's enough to
exactly. Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
put it out there, you know. Maybe out of 1,000 people, few people, just very few people will pick it up, but that's already so much. So you know, I'm hoping that we could improve, you know, and not just go back to what we were doing before, but continue, and in a way that it's also new and more, you know, that we remember what this was
yeah.
all about. also the, you know, the way how humans adapt, you know, like it's not the strongest species that survives, the one that has the most capacity to adapt. So we've adapted to this journey, to this experience so much. So now let's bring that sense of that adaptation to hopefully, you know, a more stable situation. And I really hope that that could happen.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about the live streamings also, that reaches, you know, so far that otherwise, you know, people wouldn't have been able to see. And it's lovely that you also say that your family saw that. That was great. Yeah. And as you say also, yeah, people, we are all touched by this in some way, you know, we're affected by this. And I also hope that this time where we all have this feeling of it's real, we are in this really, that this realness from people will continue, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, so
But
these are my wishes.
pardon?
These are my wishes. Let's
Oh,
see.
that's wonderful. That's so
I keep
wonderful.
my finger crossed.
Yeah. But thank you so much for your time and
Thank you.
lovely insights. It's so wonderful. You really touched points that I haven't thought of, and that would keep me thinking as well. Would you mind if I share this on YouTube?
No, that would be good. I'm happy. I
Wonderful.
think also thank you so much for, you know, taking the time for this project. I think it is so beautiful that you wanted to talk to different artists and wanted to talk about this subject. I'm very grateful that you're doing this, and I think it's as
Thank you so
beautiful
much.
potential. So thanks a lot for also
Yeah,
reaching out.
yeah, well, I think it's wonderful to have this, the artists talk about this, and I find it fascinating, and I hope this will give an opportunity for people to hear and have some more insight also into how artists experience this, and then also how artists experience their art and their lives and what they do. So yeah, in that sense. But have a wonderful evening.
Thanks. You too.
And
And
whenever you are in Vienna, please write to me. I would so love
all
to
right,
meet
I
you.
will do so. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. All
Okay.
right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.